My name is Dan Reynolds. I'm an account executive at Lusha, and this is the Find a Way Pot Sales Podcast. Today's special guest is the one and the only Jeff Glickman. Jeff, how are you?
Great to meet you, Dan. Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Working from home, I see.
Working from home. Working from home.
Good stuff.
Optimal efficiency. It's the lens that you look at it through. For me, it's actually been a great thing in terms of efficiency.
Great. Well, Jeff, we'll talk about efficiency soon for sure. But before we get to that, please introduce yourself to our audience.
So my name is Jeff Glickman. I'm the Global Director of Sales at GeoEdge. I have been with the company for approximately 10 years. I think this coming June will be 10 years. And yeah, it's been quite a journey.
And tell us about your personal life.
I
mean, it's part of it. You told me you've been working at home for a year. I've been working at home for a year also. I have a wife and 3 kids. When this year started, I had a full head of hair. Okay. So just by looking at you, I think, maybe you're in a similar situation.
So just to add some context, we're headquartered out of Tel Aviv. I'm actually a native-born Canadian, and actually I don't come from the high-tech infrastructure or from that ecosystem, but it's been home for the last 13 years. So when I moved to Israel, I was not actually quite sure what I wanted to do, and I wasn't quite sure outside of my native English what Israel wanted from me. It became quite readily apparent that with my skill set and particularly the English, that the high-tech sector was home. And actually high-tech found me before I found it. Received some very interesting phone calls. So I started with a biotech publishing company in my early days, and did a couple of moves since then. But GeoEdge has been home for roughly the last 10 years for me.
Great. And I know we're both from North York originally. And
that's in Toronto, by the way.
Yeah. 416.
We're 416ers.
Listen, I took a look at your LinkedIn profile, and there's something that just blew me away. And I really, want to dig a little bit deeper into this because you've done something in this industry at a level that you're at that is rarely done. In fact, I would almost call you a human unicorn because it's that rare. The average sales leader, we all know from VP up, has an average tenure of probably 16 to 18 months now, and it's getting shorter all the time. It's just the way the system is built. But you've been in this position at the same company for 10 years. Did I hear you said 10 years and I looked at your LinkedIn profile and it said 10 years. Is that 10 years?
June will be 10 years, for better and for worse.
Okay, so but normally, it's a year and a half as a sales leader and you're out. How on earth did you do it?
So I think there's inherently a lot of churn in the sector. And I think people are always looking for better margins and a better personality and a better mesh. Sometimes it's better just to optimize what you've got because you could end up starting from ground zero again each time you rehire. For us, I came into GeoEdge when the company was really young. It was at a very, very formative age. I believe I was only the second employee into the company. There was a lot of opportunity to sort of put a fingerprint in terms of product, in terms of sales flows, sales apparatus, sales mechanisms, CRM configurations. And it allowed me, I would say, early on to build a world that felt good to me. And that I could swim in that pool. And in the early days, I was a really formative part of that plan. As things have gone on, it's no longer Jeff-centric. Actually, our CEO is a gentleman named Amnon, and our VP marketing, someone named Tobias. We were quite a trio for a number of years. But when you want to start to scale things, that just isn't efficient anymore. So it's really became a team effort. So I would say on the front end, I had my cake and I could eat it too. I would say as time went on, it became the ability to adapt. Meaning our company journey our plans for our company journey changed, our product changed, our course changed. And to be able to continually navigate those waters, I think is a bit of a skill set if someone wants to stay. I have a strong belief system in the company. So for me, I was quite prepared to navigate those waters.
But I think from what we experience out there, working for startups is, yeah, we all want to stay. We all want to
Right.
have a long career, hopefully in one place, because it's hard to move. You got to start again, build up the relationships, figure out the systems, the guy that sits next to you, the product, your customers. The pressure comes from the business, onto sales leadership. And, ideally, yeah, like as a VP and up, you want to stay for as long as possible. But the pressures of high tech dictate, especially with sales, that, like you're only as last month doesn't count anymore,
So first of all, I agree, and you can subscribe to that methodology, right? And you can become part of that hamster wheel. The other side of it is that year on year you're improving what you're doing. Year on year your yield is greater. Your margins continue to improve over time. So, instead of trying to optimize the company or optimize the job title, optimize where you're at, right? So, if you've hit your OTE, if you've hit your target for a given year, that's great. Be happy, be proud. But when they raise your numbers next year, see that as a very doable challenge. And if you take that seriously and you start to hit those targets, that year on year, you're just doing better. You're just doing better exponentially, right?
So you're basically saying, like, small steps, like take what's in front of you, take on the challenge, do what you need to do.
I would segregate it into a few different components, and that means own what you do. Just be the captain of your ship. Be the best you can be at what you do. Own it, but take that real seriously. I would say that's number one. Realize that you're not just being judged by the numbers that you bring, but you're also being judged on how you perform within the ecosystem of your company. Do you float with your crew? Do you float with the rest of the team? Make sure from a sales position that your product isn't static, that you're also pushing your product team, because you're the one listening to your customers every day. We need to do X, we need to add Y. Can we build this into the next sprint? This is very important for our tier one customers. So you can actually push the product side of it as well. If your yield, if your leads are not sufficient or they're not of high enough quality, you as a high performing sales professional year on year, you have the weight to actually now go and sit down with your marketing department and try to optimize and figure out what's going on.
Tell me, you mentioned like meshing with your team. You said when you started, it was you sitting in an office with the co-founder.
Correct.
Tell me about the team today. What does your team look like?
Well, I would say, so we have two divisions at GeoEdge. One division pertains to our ad verification or our ad scanning, ad blocking technologies, which is really what GeoEdge is all about. I'm today more aligned with Pangeo. That is our proxy brand. We have a premium proxy service. It is the most premium service in the world for a multitude of reasons. And at one point in time, we maintained that brand under GeoEdge. We've actually decided to do a complete rebrand to actually separate the companies, although they're under the same roof. Different messaging, new websites, new UIs, new functionality. And that's what I'm driving today. So in terms of my team, it's comprised of sales, customer success, support, billing and legal infrastructure, and product/R&D. But that product/R&D team is concentric to both GeoEdge and Pangeo.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about, prospecting, bringing in new leads. What does that motion look like with you guys, and how has it changed?
For the company, I would say we probably got smart over a lot of years. I would say, early on, people probably are trying to allocate budgets for a lot of AdWords and these types of things. But there's a lot of different forms of marketing that can take place. You can run podcasts and invite people to your podcasts.
You're doing that now, by the way.
Absolutely.
Like right now.
If you've got a really relevant audience, first of all, they won't attend unless they're relevant. And if they are relevant, then those are potential leads for you as well. For my service, we do a lot of work in different sectors. We're typically very, very strong in the ad tech sector. So right now, I've actually found that we have some other brands that are finding our services quite useful, or some other vertical, cybersecurity as an example. So what we're doing is we're building some outbound projects where we first do our research, our due diligence. We'll actually identify a sector, a vertical that we'd like to penetrate. Then we'll find out who the leaders in that vertical are. Then we will actually drill down to the leaders within the given companies within that sector. And then we use Lusha to actually do our prospecting, generate our leads, do our reach out, and turn these people into viable sales leads. So again, I think a lot of the interest is going to come from people who just have generic interest. They have interest on their own, and they realize that they need a very strong VPN or an ad verification service. So they'll do the Google searches. You're going to have the Googlers of this world, the AdWords, and people who sit on that. You're going to have BDR or business development representatives. They do a lot of outbound calls. And in my situation, I do sort of a healthy blend between bringing on people to actually do the lead research, the reach out, and close the deals.
Just to jump back to the start of the prospecting motion a little bit, and I think it always changes, of course, by the industry and who you're selling into. Like, what kind of cadence have you found, works? Mix of, email, calling, LinkedIn, like.
So
where does it sit with you guys?
It'll also vary by market. I find North Americans a lot more reticent to pick up their telephones and to be receptive to sales calls, particularly higher management. Very much not the case in Europe. You can call a given company and it's not necessarily that difficult to even get the CEO on the phone. So I think the approach needs to vary by region a little bit. But I think there's no substitute for telephone. And getting the telephone number, that's the holy grail, right? So we have a lot of people in my current organization, my prior organizations as well. They're looking for information initially. Will they give you their full name? Will they give you their corporate ID? Will they give you their corporate domain? Probably not. They're probably going to give you a first name without a last name. They're going to give you a generic email address. To me, the holy grail is the telephone number. If that telephone number is there, pick up the phone and make a call. And it's very interesting, people always ask me if, in that vein, if I'm the best salesperson that I ever met. No. I would say I'm second. And it's interesting, and I raise it for a particular reason. This gentleman is, and I think, Dan, you're probably a lot more like me. I really want to get to know my customers. And I don't say that generically, meaning I want to build a bond. I want there to be a relationship in place. That makes commercial challenges, technical challenges, renewals, update, that much more palpable, easy to do, and it adds a stickiness to the relationships. The one person that I would say talked to me was the most monotone, robotic, lackluster, non-showing of personality you could ever imagine. And he actually spoke like a robot. He conducted himself like a robot. But he did a call every 7 minutes on 7 minutes, nonstop, 14 hours a day. He worked through his weekends, and he was a machine. So there was a great deal of stickiness to his own process, right? Is one right? Is one wrong? I don't know. But if you can get them on the phone, I think that's the key. And for me, I want to build that bridge.
Yeah, I mean, my sales process is a lot about discipline, and I can relate to a guy that does the same thing every 7 minutes because
Yes.
you get success from that, but it's damn hard. I mean, to keep up that routine, it's impossible. It's impossible. But we know that if you do it, you can get it done. And I'm also, more like you when it comes to, being authentic, having conversations, real conversations, creating rapport building. And you can't write a book on rapport building. I mean, how do you build rapport? Like, you can't spell it out. But
Right.
it starts with the phone. You got to pick up the phone, say hi. What's going on in your life? How are you?
Absolutely. The task actually gets that much harder. And you're going to understand what I'm going to say to you right now. It's that you could be speaking to, Mike Smith at company X, and everything's going fantastic. You're commiserating on what's going on with COVID and your families and your children and, the state of the markets and Donald Trump and X, Y, and Z, right? But you still need to make that segue to business, right? You still need to make that segue to business in that call. And it's a big talent to actually make that segue. So for me, as an example, I have a recipe, right? So when I'm going to start a sales call, I'm not going to proceed into business until I can hear you. Again, until I hear you smile. And you can hear a smile through a telephone. Once I've heard that call, it's a knee-jerk reaction into business because I've already got the other side elevated. They're happy. They're happy to be on this call. They're enjoying what they're doing. Once I finish business, I make an immediate segue right back to the personal stuff. So we're going to end that call with a smile. That's my personal recipe. And again, this guru that I'd say trumps me. It's embarrassing to say, but he put me to shame, and he would not adhere to my methodology at all.
There's not, I mean, it's sales. There's not one size fits all. And, this is the beauty of it. And it's just about finding your niche. And, I think for guys with our type of personality, you have to go for the authentic, to be authentic and push down that path. Because the others, I mean, for me to think about doing those things, the same thing every time, without listening for the smile, like you said, I can't do that. That's not that's not going to bring me success. But by all, as you said, it's going to bring that guy success. Great, go for it. Happy when your teammates hit their numbers, of course.
Right. So wouldn't you say then, it's fine, I'll ask you this question. Wouldn't you say then that probably the most healthy hybrid would be a true blend between being the optimal relationship builder and maintainer and being the sales professional at the same time, and to be able to maintain those respective balances? To me, that's where the magic sits.
Yeah,
And
there's no question.
And I mean, listen, you're working with a really large organization. You're working with a Salesforce of this world. You're working with a Google of this world, or, a really big publisher or advertiser in my space. You've got two lanes that you're going to go in. You're going to either fall into that sort of bureaucratic lane where you are just treated very bureaucratically, very process oriented. You're going to be passed from one person to another with a lot of moving you to BCC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until you actually end up where you want to be. Okay. The other one is going to be that when you get that opportunity to build that bridge with that CDM, that KDM, that key decision maker, build that bridge, because that actual will help you brush that bureaucratic process aside. That KDM will brush it aside for you.
Yeah, it's amazing. There was a period of time where they said that's it. Building relationships, in SaaS or for, it doesn't work anymore. It's not the way it works. It's all about the value, and anybody can do it. But at least from my experience, of course, products got to work. They got to be stickiness. It's got to bring value, but it starts with picking up the phone and making these relationships, because it does work. And like you said, it might not, it's about, getting information from your key guy, and getting the details that you wouldn't get, just by being vanilla about something, just by putting in the dials. Like, you need that kind of intel to build your business case. And in order to get that, you have to create the relationships. And it's
an acquired skill, though. It's an acquired skill, and it's an acquired talent. But once somebody, and by the way, I find that it's really important for salespeople. It's also inherently important for the customer success teams, right? Because the way these deals are being done today is the sales team or the account executive does the deal. Once it's done, that customer passes over to the success team. And it's another opportunity, and it makes me think of my company as well as others that we work with. Is there a consistency in language and approach and tone between the sales teams and the success teams? Because if you've got customer A and you're handing them from Dan to Honit in success, but if she's just completely different, speaking a different language than you, that's part of the customer's journey, right? And I don't know if enough companies think about it.
It's hard.
I just put a little bug into my own mind.
Yeah, no, get back to work. We'll wrap up here in a minute. But obviously, a lot, like sales and marketing alignment. That's what everybody sort of talks about the last couple of years. But you're right. You got to break it down even farther than that. Your BDRs, your SDRs have to be aligned with your AEs, and okay, that's obvious, but it doesn't end there. Success has to be aligned, and everybody can bring their own personalities and their own styles, but the core of what it is and the messaging has to be the same. There's no question. Otherwise, it is a bumpy journey and it doesn't work in the end. Anyway, just before we wrap up here, first of all, thank you very much for your time. It's been
Cool.
great chatting with you. Just tell us again a little
Can I
bit.
give you a parting thought?
I want to ask you one more thing before the parting thought.
Okay.
Like, just again, tell us about the company that you're at now and what you guys do, and what kind of companies that do business with you.
I work today for our parent company is GeoEdge. I am driving Pangeo, which is our proxy / VPN IP services company or brand within GeoEdge. GeoEdge is a leader in the ad verification and the ad blocking space. I would say our target audience are publishers and platforms. On the proxy side of things, again, we've got a massive footprint in ad tech, again, with the platforms themselves. That would be the DSPs, the SSPs, the networks, the header bidding platforms. We work with the publishers themselves, and as well with the advertisers. We've made a big push right now into the cybersecurity world. We've got very, very high quality IPs, exceptionally high, which works very well for their application. And actually payment solutions. So there's all kinds of different ways to pay today. You've got this pay provider, you've got that pay provider. They work all over the world. They need to make sure that their payment flows for a given customer are working properly online. So they utilize our IPs that way.
Okay, so if that sounds relevant to somebody listening, how do they get in touch with you?
So Pangeo, www.pangeopro, PANGEOpro.com. Email me directly, Jeff.Glickman, Jeff.Glickman, GLICKMAN @pangeopro.com.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I didn't forget about your parting thought. Let's have it.
So remember, you were asking me about the key to longevity in 10 years, and I think that and I gave you sort of several milestones. But if somebody comes into a company, if they set their own personal plan and their milestones properly, and they adhere to it, they should inherently become a producer. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if they are socially flexible, if they're kind, if they're patient, if they mesh with the other people at the company, that's just bred a great recipe for that person. They've bred their own success. If they have a good relationship with the marketing team and the marketing team knows that they're successful, they're now going to have the ear of the marketing team. Same with the product team, same with all the respective teams. So building your own recipe, elevating yourself within the company, becoming successful will inherently make the other teams want to listen to you more. And if the hierarchy at that company is not paying attention, they should. That's my parting thought.
Yeah, that's good. And again, amazing run that you've had. May it continue for as long as you want it to continue.
You're awesome. Thank you very much. You're making me feel great.
Well, thank you for your time, Jeff. We really appreciate it.
All the best, Dan.
Yeah,
you're a superstar yourself, my friend. So first of all, thank you for all the credit, but you deserve some yourself. Thank you for having me. I really appreciated the opportunity. This is great.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. The check is in the mail for that last compliment, by the way. Not to worry.
No checks necessary.
Right.
Good to meet you, my friend. Stay safe, stay well, stay healthy.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.